Welcome back to My Cricket Coach. I'm Ben Williams, and today I'm going to cover a few of the batting basics for a beginner cricketer. Looking at batting for the beginner cricketer, so I always encourage them to grip it and rip it, and we're just going to encourage the youngster to give it a whack and just to enjoy giving it a whack and have a lot of fun, all right? But sometimes, in some cases, you have a youngster who's quite talented and are good kinesthetic learners, and you found just after a few days that they're actually hitting it beautifully and they're showing a lot of promise. So it is time to just maybe get them to set up, and you feel, just with the use of common sense, that you feel comfortable. You can give them a few pointers and a few tips without boring them and putting them off the game. So when that time comes, I'm just going to cover a few things now that you can just maybe spend a bit of time on, having some fun executing with your child. The first thing to sort out is how to hold the bat. So what I like to do with youngsters is I get them to place the bat down on the ground. Okay, they'll then reach down and pick the bat up off the ground like so. Okay, the emphasis should be on trying to create a V shape with the index finger and the thumb, and it should be running down the back of the bat. Now, some coaches like to think the V should be pointing down that side of the bat. Other coaches will say the V should be pointing into that side of the bat. Now, I believe this is a personal preference, but as long as your V's are running down the back of the bat, generally that should be fine. Okay, so start out with that. Now, in regards to whether the youngster is a right-handed batter or a left-handed batter, okay, that will generally be determined by how comfortable the setup is and the way the player moves and strikes the ball. You'll be able to identify what is the most comfortable position, and I do recommend youngsters try both. All right, so that's also a bit of fun trialling that out. But with the grip, you don't want the hands to be too wide, and just get them relatively close. The player will generally find what works best for them in regards to they hold it lower on the bat or slightly higher. Okay, work out what works best there by getting the player just there into the stance position and just picking up the bat like so there, just feeling the weight of the bat. We're looking at the stance now, where to take the stance. So I encourage young batsmen to take guard and work out where middle stump is. So they'll just stand their bat up like so, ask the parent or the coach who's assisting just to tell them whether to move their bat whatever way, but just to make sure when it's in line with middle stump, we're going to make a mark. Now this mark is called a guard, and we're going to put our toes in line with our guard. Alright, so like I said, I encourage youngsters to start off batting in line with middle stump, and as they get older, sometimes they may take a leg stump guard or a middle and off guard, but always starting out on middle stump is a good place to start. Okay, so once we've worked that out, we're then going to take the stance. All right, you can usually use a piece of chalk or scrape a line in line with middle stump, but I like to use tape, especially when we're on an artificial surface, because then it's there all the time and it's very easy to get the youngster into good habits. So we'll then look to place our toes in line with middle stump, okay? But then of course it's important to understand the width of our stance, alright? So some kids especially will start too wide or be too close, so I like to encourage the kids to get their feet shoulder width apart in the stance. Alright, so I'll get my feet shoulder width apart, and of course the other thing you can do with tape is just place it down there, okay, sideways, or parallel to the crease I should say. Alright, we'll work out the width of the feet, okay, and we'll just place the tape down. Alright, so in this instance, alright, for myself, I'm just going to place my feet on the tape, toes in line with middle stump, okay, and we'll generally just bend the knees slightly, okay. The main thing about the stance is that the nose, I believe, should be in line, okay, with the ball of the back foot there, okay? And the reason I say that is because some kids will like to have a slightly open stance, okay, and that's okay also, but the main thing, all right, is that your eyes are level in the stance, all right, and the nose is lining up with the ball of the back foot. This generally cements a very stable and balanced stance position. One thing that I see a lot in youngsters, okay, is they will do their bat tap, all right, when they tap the bat on the ground, and they're leaning down like so. So the eyes are unlevel, all right, and the head and the weight is already encouraged to fall over to the offside. So really important that you use a mirror or some video analysis with youngsters just to help them realise where their nose is in relation to the back foot. Alright, so good stability there in the stance is key. When the player is in the stance and they've executed that bat tap, eyes are nice and level, sometimes I'll see the shoulders are very open. Alright, now that's going to cause all sorts of problems. Okay, the old textbook manual will tell you to get those shoulders side on and pointing back to the bowler. Okay, but that also assists youngsters for their eyes to become unlevel. So I always encourage youngsters just to have their shoulders ever so slightly open, just to assist them to get the head or the nose slightly to the bowler, which will help keep the eyes level and the weight engaged slightly over the front foot. I'll turn sideways and just show you that. Alright, so I like to also encourage a 60-40 theory, so we get 60% of that body weight just hovering over the front foot, so we're slightly engaged towards the bowler. Alright, because again, a common fault I see with the beginner cricketer when they do their bat tap and take their stance, okay, they're back here. So that weight is on the back foot, and that is going to cause all sorts of problems. So looking at the feet, I encourage youngsters to feel the weight in the balls of the feet, not on the toes because they'll be encouraged to fall over to the offside, not on the heels because there'll be too much weight sitting back. So just a nice happy medium balls in the weight of the feet. It will assist in efficient movement and good footwork. And regarding the knees, I also see youngsters, bending the knees quite a lot. Alright, so just encourage them to just have a nice comfortable bend in the knees there, not too low, alright, not too straight, just a little bend, and get still again in that stance. Alright, because if we're moving and bending there, the eye line, or level of the eyes I should say, will be dropping. So it's going to make it very hard to see the ball very well and make good depth perception and judgment and things like that. So I always encourage, once a youngster has got into a really good stance position, to be nice and still, nice and calm and relaxed. Looking at the bat tap now, alright, so sometimes players will really slam that bat down really hard, okay, or they'll tap very quickly. Now that creates anxiety, there's a lot of tension there. So it's really important to stay relaxed and calm, keep things simple and economic. So just a couple of bat taps I generally encourage, but get still again, alright, and make sure that the player is very relaxed. One thing also I see youngsters doing is leaning on the bat quite a lot. We don't want to be leaning on it. Again, that'll encourage the eyes to collapse there. I'll just show you from side on. One thing I also see with the bat tap is a very closed bat tap. Just make sure that the bat face is still open when you're tapping it, and don't over-exaggerate it like so. So in regards to where you rest it, or you do your bat tap, some players like to be there, some like to go behind the back foot. That's a personal preference thing, but again, as a coach or a parent looking at your child doing the bat tap, just make sure wherever they're tapping, okay, that the eyes are level, right? Not here. So looking at the back lift, this is where it's really important when you're buying a bat for the beginner cricketer that they really have got the right weight. Okay, the bat's not too heavy, not too light. Really important to ask the right questions of the retailer. We've actually got an equipment advice section, so head there, we've got some useful tips. But with the back lift, okay, pretty simple stuff. We don't want the back lift coming out here too far. I always encourage youngsters to get the back lift going back relatively straight, alright, but if it's out to the side ever so slightly, that's okay. But what we're looking for is for the wrist, or the top wrist, to be doing a lot of the work, and I'll come a little bit closer and show you there. Alright, so we just want to make sure that the wrist there is loading up the weight of the bat, okay, so you can just see the wrist cocking there, alright, and really owning the back lift. Alright, we don't want to be picking up the back lift. I see a lot of kids holding the bat like this, okay, or they lift it out to the side and it goes in. As you can see, the wrist has become very weak when that happens, alright, and also the forearm has become separated. And I always say, when we're doing a back lift, do your best to make sure that the forearm complements the shoulder alignment, and I'll show you that there now. Okay, so there, alright, so it's on the same line as the shoulders, and you'll see as you move the player stroke as well, okay, the forearm there is complementary to the shoulder alignment. So main thing is just to be aware of the wrist, make sure the wrist is strong and taking full ownership of that back lift. Okay, but again, it's a very personal thing, the back lift. Show you the back lift I encourage from behind. So you see the wrist doing the work, okay, and lifting that bat up. Okay, so not out here, all right, not behind yourself. Try to be straight, but most of the time it'll be just ever so slightly, we say, towards the first slip or second slip region, okay, on a slight angle, but again, making sure this wrist is staying in control and not getting flimsy, like so, like that. So we're looking at movement now. So once the player has made judgment and made their shot selection, all right, it is about moving efficiently into a stable striking position. So at all times, place big emphasis on keeping the eyes level as the player moves, but I encourage youngsters to lead with the head and the front shoulder to the line of the ball. So the front foot will generally follow, and that should assist in making sure the shoulders stay aligned to the delivery and also engaged down. This will keep the hands nice and deep, and I'll show you that from side on. Okay, so shoulders lead to the line, brings the hands back, they're nice and deep, so then the player has full control of the weight of the bat and can control the hands in the downswing to have a nice late contact. Late contact obviously encourages well-timed and controlled strokes, and again, I'll just show you from this angle here. All right, it is so important, okay, to feel that your weight is engaged over your front leg. All right, good head position. All right, and those tips there, if we place emphasis on those things when we're moving into a stable striking position, you can't really go wrong. There's plenty of things to focus on, and so I've covered these in other videos, batting videos, in our batting sections ahead there. But I think what we've done there for the beginner cricketer, just check off the basics. So a little health check there in regards to the grip, the stance, the bat tap, the backlift, and the way the player moves. So I hope those tips have inspired some of you young budding cricketers out there. Remember, I'm here to help you with your cricket, and I love reading all of your comments below. In my next video, I'm going to give you a few tips on how to do video analysis with bowlers, so make sure you subscribe here. I'd love to have you on board.